Sun Tzu never lost a battle, not one. In a century when Chinese warlords were burning through armies the way modern governments burn through budgets, that record wasn't luck. It was arithmetic. Most people encounter the art of war through a quote on a motivational poster or a chapter in a business book written by someone who skimmed the original. They absorb the slogans: know your enemy, strike without warning, appear weak when you are strong. And they walk away thinking they understand a military philosopher. They don't. Because Sun Tzu wasn't a military philosopher, he was a cost accountant, and the bill he was calculating wasn't measured in soldiers, it was measured in states. China in the late 6th century BCE was not a civilization. It was a slow-motion collapse dressed as one. The spring and autumn period had given way to something uglier, the Warring States era, a 200-year tournament of mutual destruction, where dozens of kingdoms competed to unify a continent, and nearly all of them bled out trying. Armies that had once numbered in the thousands now numbered in the hundreds of thousands. The chariot duels of the aristocracy were gone. In their place, infantry conscription, iron weapons, and supply chains that stretched hundreds of miles and devoured everything they touched. Grain, horses, iron, labor. The moment a king ordered his army to march, he was spending money he hadn't earned yet, against an outcome he couldn't guarantee. Sun Tzu watched this. He processed it the way an analyst processes a collapsing balance sheet, and he wrote a book that almost no one has ever read correctly. The first line of The Art of War is the most important, not the famous ones people quote at dinner parties. The first one: war is of vital importance to the state. In the original Chinese, the word he uses doesn't mean glorious, it doesn't mean honorable. It means dangerous, disruptive, capable of killing the thing it claims to protect. Sun Tzu announces on page 1 that war is a liability, not an asset. Everything that follows is a manual for minimizing that liability before it destroys you. He opens his strategic framework with 5 variables: the moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, method, and discipline. Generations of military theorists have passed these as philosophical categories. They are not. They are cost variables. Sun Tzu is performing a pre-campaign risk assessment. He is asking, how stable is your population? What are the seasonal constraints on your supply chain? What does the terrain cost you to cross? How efficiently does your command structure convert resources into outcomes? How disciplined is your administration at the point of maximum pressure? Every question is economic before it is strategic, and his point is brutal. Leaders who cannot answer these questions with precision have no business sending armies anywhere. His section on logistics should be read in every economics department in the world. When your army is 20 miles from home, he writes, you lose the price of 100 measures of grain. The number is precise, the warning is specific. Distance multiplies cost. Time multiplies cost faster. He calculates that a field army of 100,000 men requires 400,000 people supporting it. The supply chain dwarfs the fighting force. He explains that prolonged campaigns collapse the agricultural labor base, drain the tax rolls, and force rulers into debt they cannot service. He is describing fiscal death by 1,000 supply wagons. And he is not speaking theoretically. He watched it happen to kingdoms around him, in real time. His solution is not bravery, it is speed. Not the romantic speed of cavalry charges, the economic speed of reducing time on campaign. Every day an army sits in the field is capital consumed. Every day the enemy is forced to respond to unpredictable pressure is capital they consume. Speed, to Sun Tzu, is not aggression. Speed is cost reduction. The faster you achieve your objective, the less you spend achieving it. This is not poetry. This is procurement logic. Then there is intelligence. Sun Tzu devotes an entire chapter to espionage, and the framing is never about secrecy or tradecraft for its own sake. The framing is always economic. A single agent, correctly placed, can prevent a campaign from launching in the wrong direction. A single intercepted message can render an entire army redundant. Foreknowledge, he writes, cannot be elicited from spirits, nor from gods, nor by analogy with past events, nor from calculations. It must be obtained from men who know the enemy situation. He is describing human intelligence as the cheapest force multiplier in existence. In an era before satellites, before signal interception, before algorithmic surveillance, Sun Tzu understood that information is capital, and misallocating information is misallocating money. The general who marches blind is not just tactically reckless, he is financially reckless. His most famous line, the one about subduing the enemy without fighting, is the one most often treated as Zen wisdom. It is not. It is cost avoidance, stated plainly. A battle, even a victorious one, costs you. It costs you soldiers, equipment, time, the opportunity to do something else with those resources. A victory achieved through diplomacy, through psychological pressure, through misdirection or the precise application of threat without commitment, that costs you almost nothing. Sun Tzu wasn't opposed to battle because he was peaceful. He was opposed to battle because he had priced it out, and the price was almost never worth it. What makes this philosophy historically verifiable is what happened to the kingdoms that ignored it. The state of Chu, one of the most powerful in the warring states period, ran its armies into extended campaigns across multiple fronts and fractured its tax base doing it. The state of Qi did the same. Brilliant generals, battlefield victories, treasury collapse. Sun Tzu would not have been surprised. He wrote the autopsy before the patient died. The pattern doesn't stop in ancient China. It runs through every major strategic failure of the last 2 centuries with the precision of a recurring equation. France and Britain entered the First World War, expecting a conflict measured in months. What they got was 4 years of industrial attrition that consumed a generation of men and the financial architecture of the British Empire. Britain entered the war as the world's largest creditor nation. It finished it as a debtor. The enemy didn't do that, the bill did. Sun Tzu wrote about this in 500 BCE. The generals in 1914 apparently didn't read him. The United States in Vietnam spent approximately $140 billion, in 1975 dollars, fighting a war in which the opposing force had essentially no comparable defense budget and absorbed punishment that would have ended any conventional army. The North Vietnamese were not stronger. They were cheaper. They were more patient. They understood, perhaps instinctively, what Sun Tzu calculated explicitly. The side that can sustain cost longer wins, regardless of who wins the engagements. The United States won nearly every major battle in Vietnam. It lost the war because it couldn't afford, politically or economically, to keep winning. The Soviet Union in Afghanistan is the same calculation performed in a different currency. 10 years. 15,000 Soviet soldiers dead, 1 million Afghans dead, and a defense budget already straining under Cold War competition that the Afghan campaign pushed past the breaking point. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Western analysts talked about ideology, about democratic pressure, about Gorbachev's reforms. Sun Tzu would have pointed at the treasury. Empires do not collapse because their ideas fail. They collapse because their finances fail first, and the ideas follow. The modern world has absorbed Sun Tzu's logic in the places it matters most, even when it doesn't say his name. Cyberwarfare is Sun Tzu. You achieve disruption, communications degraded, infrastructure compromised, decision cycles scrambled, at a fraction of the cost of conventional military action. Russia's interference in the 2016 American election reportedly cost somewhere between $10 and $20 million. The disruption it created was measured in billions of dollars of institutional damage and years of political dysfunction. That is a return on investment Sun Tzu would have recognized immediately. Sanctions are Sun Tzu. You impose economic cost on an adversary without the financial exposure of deploying forces. Proxy warfare is Sun Tzu. You bleed an adversary using their own neighbors while your treasury remains largely intact. The United States spent approximately $75 billion supporting Ukraine through 2023. Russia spent multiples of that prosecuting the campaign. The asymmetry is deliberate. It is doctrine. And it is ancient. The deeper reading of the art of war, the one that takes a second and third pass to see, is that Sun Tzu wasn't writing a military manual at all. He was writing a theory of national solvency. His core argument, threaded through every chapter, is that a state's greatest strategic asset is not its army. It is its capacity to function, economically, politically, socially. An army is a drain on that capacity, a necessary one sometimes, but always a drain. The general's job, in Sun Tzu's framework, is not to maximize battlefield effectiveness. It is to achieve the political objective at minimum cost to national resilience. Victory that exhausts you is not victory, it is delayed defeat. This is what separates Sun Tzu from every military theorist who followed him. Clausewitz, writing in the early 19th century, described war as the continuation of politics by other means. Magnificent framing. But Clausewitz was a Prussian officer who lived inside a system built for war. He optimized for winning. Sun Tzu was a strategist operating in a system that was consuming itself through endless conflict. He optimized for surviving winning. The distinction is the difference between a general and a statesman. The lesson doesn't require a battlefield to apply. Every modern state faces a version of Sun Tzu's core dilemma. How do you project power without depleting the foundation that makes that power possible? Defense budgets that crowd out infrastructure investment, or foreign interventions that generate blowback costing more than the intervention achieved, or military guarantees extended beyond the economic capacity to honor them. These are not modern policy failures. They are ancient failures wearing contemporary clothing. Sun Tzu catalogued them, priced them, and warned, with the calm precision of someone who had watched kingdoms die, that the cost always comes due. Always. The only variable is when. The Art of War is not a book about how to fight. It is a book about what fighting costs. And the rulers who understood that distinction, who treated military force as a financial instrument requiring strict accountability rather than a stage for national ambition, built systems that endured. The ones who didn't built monuments. Monuments are what you leave behind when the treasury runs out. History doesn't repeat, but the invoice always arrives.